La-di-da-di-da. Okay, here we go. So first of all, I wanted to go over kind of the what's going to happen over the next week, or even really 2 weeks, because next week is going to be pretty weird, but this week is going to be normal. So today I'm going to introduce the plate project, and you are going to plan out your plate shape and the design that's going to be on the plate, because the little tiles that you made last week, these are going to become the inspiration for the design you make on your plate. Then tomorrow, I'm going to demonstrate how to actually make the plate. You're going to have work time. Wednesday, we're going to, hopefully your plate will be leather hard by Wednesday, and then we'll start stamping the designs into the surface. Thursday, we're going to add a foot to the bottom. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then Friday, the plate is due. And for those of you who haven't had me for distance learning, obviously, you can't turn the plate in to me to grade. So the way I grade stuff is you record a 360-degree video of your finished project, and then you write an artist's statement. So I'll be explaining more about that as we get closer to Friday. But that's this week in a nutshell. I plan to be at school today. I am at school today till 3 o'clock. And I'll be here tomorrow till 3 o'clock. And then the next time I plan to be here is on Friday till 3 o'clock. And so Friday is the day this project is due. So once you're done with the project, if you want to fire it, you'd be able to bring it in on Friday, and then I would let it dry probably over the weekend. And then I'd be able to fire it for next week, and you'd be able to come in and glaze if you wanted to. So that's kind of this week in a nutshell. Next week, if I'm not mistaken, I think you only have 2 days of school next week. You have off on Monday and Tuesday. Those are workshop days for teachers. And then I believe next Friday is another workshop day for teachers, so we can plan for moving back to hybrid learning. So I think you only have school next week on Wednesday and Thursday. Like, confirm this with your other teachers, because I don't always trust myself to know what's going on, but I think that's the situation. So I have to figure out what we're going to do next week for 2 days. Don't worry, I'll think of something. But just to let you know, it's important that we finish the plate this week, because otherwise things would dry out too much if we save them into next week. Okay, so do you have any questions about this week or next week, that schedule? No? Okay, great, moving on. So on that next clean page in your notebook, please write up at the top, small plate assignment. These notes are going to be for week 2, day 1. So the gist of this assignment is you're going to make a plate that you could actually eat off of if you wish. And we're going to use the designs that we practiced last week, and you're going to utilize them in some way on your plate. Now, a lot of the images I'm going to show you show designs, like in this little plate right here, it has that kind of cherry blossom design. So obviously that design was not created in the same way that you're going to create a design, but you could very easily create this same cherry blossom design by drawing on the branches and then using your popsicle sticks to create the blossoms. So all the designs I'm going to show you are created in ways other than you're going to create, but they're inspiration for how your design could be laid out. And so that's going to be the way I want you to look at these examples. So things you're going to need to find, and you don't need to find them right now, okay? But I just want to give you a heads up. In your Ziploc baggie, in your swag bag, there is a blue hexagonal plate. So this is the plate that I had intended for you to use for this project. However, if you want to use a different plate, if you have bigger paper plates, or if you have plastic plates, or if you, I guess I don't really want you to use a real ceramic plate. Like I wouldn't want something to get broken. But if you have something different that you would want to use for this project, because we're going to be pressing clay into this shape. So if you use the shape I gave you, the plate you make is going to be a hexagon. I thought it was an interesting shape, kind of different from just a standard circle. But if you want a standard circle, and if you have a paper plate you want to use at home, go for it. All the things I'm going to show you in the demos will apply to any shaped plate that you want to use. But if you don't have anything that you feel strongly about at your house, then you're going to be using the blue plate that I gave you. All right, so I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. So that as you're designing today and trying to figure out what you want to make, you know what kind of shape you're designing for. Okay, so first, before I dig any deeper, I think it's important that you understand what a plate is, because I'm sure you're totally in the dark about what I'm talking about. What is a plate, Ms. Schmidt? So a plate is a shallow, usually circular vessel from which food is eaten or served. And so when we hear that word vessel, a vessel is a container. So a container contains something, so it kind of hugs it and keeps it safe. Now with a plate, obviously it's not a closed container, it's a very shallow container. But it's really important that you recognize and take to heart that idea of it being a vessel, which means that it does need to contain the food. So it does need a lip that is raised up above the middle part of the plate. So if you put spaghetti on your plate, the spaghetti just doesn't run right off the plate onto your table. So the edges do need to be higher. It does need to be that slight shallow vessel in order to qualify as a plate. It cannot just be completely flat, is what I'm trying to say here. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind as you're working today. And the idea behind me giving you this paper plate is it has that rim on it that's raised up higher than the center. So if you press your clay gently into this plate, you're going to have that rim that you need in order for it to be that shallow vessel. All right, this is the part I want you to write down, please, so that you have it very clear what your expectations are. So you're going to create a ceramic plate by using a pre-existing plate as a mold. So obviously a paper plate is not permanent. So you're going to be pressing clay into that paper plate, and then when it's strong enough, removing your clay so that you have a permanent version of that paper plate, and a much more interesting version than that paper plate. And if you remember from Ceramics A, you used a mold in Ceramics A. We draped clay over a plaster mold. And a mold is something that allows you to make multiples. So if you wanted to, you could use this same paper plate to make multiple clay plates. I don't think that by pressing clay into this paper plate that we're going to ruin it. So I think you would be able to reuse this if you wanted to make more than one. So that's the first part of your assignment. Second part, the lip of your plate must be higher than the center of the plate. All right, that's key. If your plate that you turn in for me is totally flat, that's a problem. Or if one side of it is kind of slumped down, that's a problem. So the lip must uniformly be higher than the center of the plate all the way around. That's called a sauce lip, because it keeps the sauce contained, whatever sauce you're using. And so your plate needs a sauce lip that is raised all the way around. And it also needs a subtle foot. So I would be willing to bet that any plate that you look at in your house, unless it's a paper plate, probably has a foot, just a gentle little ring on the bottom. Not big, but just enough so that when you set that plate down slightly, like maybe a little bit too firmly, it absorbs the shock of that plate. So I'm going to be showing you how to use a tool that you have in your tool caddy to make a subtle foot. You'll also need your initials and your hour number on the bottom of this project too. Next thing to write down, it is going to be a requirement that you either use your handmade popsicle stick tools and or found object tools as a stamped design on your plate. So when I was grading your practice tiles that were due on Friday, I saw a handful of people who looked like they used their popsicle stick to draw a design, and then the design was exclusively drawn on the tiles. And you could draw a little bit, like you could draw maybe a primary area with whatever tool you want, but the remainder of the design, or the majority of the design, should have come from stamping the tip of the tools into the clay. And so that's a big thing that I want to make sure is clear to you for this plate assignment. You're going to be stamping either the tools that you made or some sort of object that you find around your house, stamping it repetitively to create a design. And when it comes to designs, make sure you get this in your notes, please. because you're going to have to be aware of what you're choosing and able to articulate what you've chosen. Your design options for stamping into your plate, you could do a design that's symmetrical. And I'll show you examples of all of these in a little bit to help clarify. But a symmetrical design, of course, would mean that it's the same on all sides. So you're doing the same design all the way around. You could also choose, if you wish, to do an asymmetrical design, which would mean it's different from one side to the other, but it still seems visually balanced. Another way that you could think about your design is, are you going to have an all-over design, a design that just kind of covers the entire plate? That would be great. Are you going to have a design that is center only, so only in the middle part of the plate, and then the rim is blank? That's fine if you want to do just in the center. And yet a third way to think about your design is maybe you just want it on the lip. Maybe you just want it to go around the rim of the plate so that your food that's in the center doesn't come into contact with your design. And that's something to think about too. Like if you're actually going to use this plate, which you could, this will be a small plate. So this will be more like a salad plate or a dessert plate or a sushi plate. So if you're going to be scooping food like a piece of cake off your plate, you might not want any sort of texture in the very center because your spoon or your fork would scrape against that texture. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to decide where your design should go. So please make sure you have these key requirements for this project written in your notes so they are there for you to reference as you're trying to figure out what you're going to do. I want to be very upfront with what I'm grading you on. If you don't have all this written down yet, snap a picture or a screenshot, and then I'm going to move on. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we're going to look at a bunch of pictures now. And again, I want to remind you that the plates that I've chosen because of the design placement, and also because these designs could be done similarly to how you're going to be doing them. So the plate on the left obviously has no design, and you're going to have a design. But the reason I chose that plate on the left is, first of all, it's a hexagon like you're possibly going to be making, but they made their hexagon look a little bit different by cutting out the exact corners of each point of the hexagon. So that's something you can do. You can alter the lip if you wish. And then the piece on the right has a design that looks like clouds to me. And it looks like it has a design that's been drawn in. And then the little raindroppy kind of design in the center of the clouds could be stamped, could be pressed in. So even though that's not how this particular person made the design, it could be an inspiration for you. And incidentally, if any of these images are intriguing to you, just sketch a little picture of them underneath where you wrote the requirements for this assignment. Okay, so not all of the examples I'm going to show you are hexagons, and it's just because I couldn't find very many hexagon plates that had designs on the interwebs. So I'm going to show you several other examples that could be inspiration that you could use on a hexagon plate. But remember, you also could use a round paper plate if you have one at home, or an oval paper plate. I know they make those too. So I'm just showing you a variety of designs, and you can apply them to whatever shape plate you want. So these plates are examples of symmetrical design. They're exactly the same. If you were to bisect the plate, the design is the same left to right, top to bottom. The one on the left has a central design. So it's the design is only in the middle of the plate, kind of like a mandala design. And then the plates on the right have an edge only design. So the center part is blank, and then the design is around the edge. So either one of those options would be totally great. Here are some asymmetrical designs. So in these cases, the artist put the design kind of offset to one side with the expectation, I'm assuming, is that when you put food on that plate, the food kind of goes in the blank space, and then the design can counterbalance the food. So you can kind of think of the food actually being part of the composition. So if you want to design something that is asymmetrical, that would be totally great. There's another example of the cherry blossom design on the left, where you could draw the branch and then stamp the flowers. You can use the tip of your popsicle stick to create that flowered design. So that's asymmetrical. Maybe that applies or appeals to you more. These are designs that I would consider to be all over designs. So there isn't, or there doesn't seem to have really been any measuring involved. It kind of looks like they started to just place the design and fill the space. So the one on the right is just kind of the same flower design repeated again and again and again. And that would be really easy to do with either a pencil tip or one of your popsicle sticks. And then the flowers on the right, it kind of looks like those were sort of randomly placed as well. And those could be done. You could take the toothpick that I gave you and you could draw in the stems and then stamp the buds of the flowers. So it can kind of be a balance there between the stamped design and a drawn design. So those are all over designs. Now, if you really want to, you could take the plate that I've given you, but you could make the shape of your ceramic plate be your own invention. So you could cut out a slab of clay that looks like a cat, or looks like a fish, or looks like a diamond shape, or looks like a square. And you could place that into your mold that I've given you. It might work better if it was a circular plate to be able to make this kind of irregular plate shape. But if you don't have a paper plate at home, you can certainly use this, and we can just place that cat-shaped slab of clay into the hexagonal mold. And I'll talk more about how to design that in a little bit. But I'm just basically wanted to say that you're not limited to circles and hexagons. All right, so you can invent your own plate shape if you wish. And these are good examples of stamped designs as well. There's a nice contrast between the textured area that was stamped and then the blank area that it was left clean and smooth. Now this project, because it makes a rather small plate and because I know a lot of people love sushi, if you're interested, you could make this a sushi plate, which would mean you could make this, it could be a hexagon sushi plate or a round sushi plate, it's up to you. These pictures happen to be rectangular sushi plates. And if you're making a sushi plate, you might want to consider also making a little pinch pot for soy sauce or little chopstick holders like you see here. So that is an option if you want to make a sushi plate. What I would say is then whatever design you put on your plate, put a similar design on your little soy sauce cup and put a similar design on your chopstick holders. So it's clear that it's a set, that they go together. And if you were to do that, if you were to make a set that's more than just a plate, it has the soy sauce thing and it has the chopstick holder thing, that would be an extra credit situation because you'd be going above and beyond. Also, since you have a mold, you have this paper plate, you could make more than one plate. And if you made more than one, it would be fairly simple to do. It's a fairly quick project and you would get extra credit for those second or third or fourth plates that you would make as well. So if you want to go above and beyond, this is a great project to be able to do so because it's a rather quick project. So just throwing that out there, the requirement is just for one plate, but if you want to do something special, by all means, be my guest. All right, so this is what you're doing for today. You're going to decide which plate you're going to use as a mold. You have to commit today. So the blue hexagonal shaped plate that I gave you is your default. If you don't want to look around your house and come up with anything better, then you're going to be using the blue plate. If you want to look around your house and find something that has a shape you like better, great, go for it. I wouldn't go super big with it. Like if you have a standard dinner plate size, that is fine. That's totally fine. But just keep in mind the amount of clay that you've been given. So we don't want to work like super huge. If you are going to do more than one plate, obviously you're going to use more clay. And so if that's the case, please know that you can come in and get more clay if you want. That would be fine. So you do have to decide which plate you're going to use today. Then I'll demonstrate this in a second. You're going to trace the plate that you want to use onto the next page of your notebook, and you're going to start to map out your design. So I don't want this to just be like flying by the seat of your pants. I'm just going to randomly put this design here and randomly put this design there. I want you to be thoughtful, and that's why we're planning today. And so when you're done tracing and then mapping out your plan, you're going to keep that design in your notebook, and tomorrow I'm going to be looking at that design, and then tomorrow I'm also going to be looking at the clay that you will have slumped inside your plate, which I'm going to show you tomorrow. So you do not have an assignment that you have to photograph today. You do have to do the assignment today, do the picture today, do the planning today. But I'm going to give you the day off in terms of turning in a picture. And really, it's giving me a day off because it's my birthday and I don't want to do any grading tonight. So you're welcome. Happy birthday to me. And so that is the expectation. No photos due today. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to start demonstrating for you. And it won't take very long. Okay, so this is the blue plate. Thank you. This is the blue plate that you have in your Ziploc baggie. You can see in relation to my head, it is not a huge plate. It's not that my head is huge, it's just a small plate. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is on the next page in your notebook to trace that plate on your notebook. And then once you've traced it, if you want to change up the shape, so here's actually, I did this already. So I traced the plate onto my notebook. And if you wanted to make the shape unique, I just drew on where cat ears would go if I wanted to make it a cat shape. I don't think I'm actually going to make it a cat shape. It doesn't go with my design, but I just wanted to show you what that would look like. And then when I did my practice tiles, this was the design that I liked the most, and I created that with a homemade stamp, popsicle sticks, and a pencil tip. So that's what I just kind of mapped out here. I'm going to have an all-over design, and that's what I think I'm going to do for my plate project as I work on it throughout the week. So this is what I would like you to attempt today. Trace out that plate. If you have your own plate and it's huge and it's bigger than your notebook is, then maybe just draw a smaller circle and then map out your design on that. Okay. I just want you to have a game plan for how that design is going to go on. Okay. So this is, you're not going to photograph this today. You're going to photograph it tomorrow along with your clay slumped inside your plate. Okay. So that is, that's the design for tomorrow, or the assignment for tomorrow. One quick note, I don't have an example of it here, but some paper plates, you know, those really cheap paper plates that are like paper thin and they've got that wavy edge all the way around. I wouldn't recommend using a really flimsy paper plate. The other reason I chose these plates is they're kind of strong. Like for a paper plate, they're kind of strong. And they need to be able to hold their structural integrity once we put the clay into them. And if you use those really, really flimsy paper plates with the wavy edge, my fear is that the water from the clay will soak into that paper and it will make the paper plate not have any structural integrity. It'll kind of start to sag and flatten out. So that kind of paper plate I would stay away from. But if you have the really strong paper plates, I think it'll work pretty well. So it's use your judgment whether you think the paper plates you have are flimsy or strong, or just use the one I gave you. Okay. So that is it for your lesson for today. Nice and brief. I'm going to stop recording.